So, um, if you ask like 100 people why they sold their cryptocurrency or, why they just stopped paying attention to the space altogether.
Yeah, I bet 99 of them will tell you it's because the price crashed.
Exactly. I mean, they'll point straight to the charts. They'll blame the volatility.
Right, it's always the volatility.
Always. But what if the real reason, like the hidden reason that millions of people quietly walk away from digital currency has absolutely nothing to do with money?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. What if it has everything to do with uh, a psychological crisis?
I mean, that completely flips the standard narrative on its head
It really does.
because we are so conditioned, to view financial systems entirely through this lens of numbers and algorithms and market caps.
Right. The math.
Exactly, and we completely ignore the human element that's holding the entire structure together.
And that human element is exactly what we're exploring today.
It's a fascinating angle.
It is. We're taking a deep dive into some truly fascinating source material today. It's an excerpt from a piece of writing titled Why People Quietly Leave Bitcoin.
A great read, by the way.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
So if you are listening to this right now, our mission today is to look way beyond those, surface level financial explanations of why people abandon crypto.
Right, we're going deeper.
Exactly. We're going to explore the psychological architecture of money itself. We want to uncover this hidden creeping crisis of what the text calls drift.
Drift. Yeah, that's a huge concept in this piece.
It is, and we're going to examine a radical, completely non-technical proposal to save a highly technical system.
Which is so ironic, but we'll get to that.
We will. Okay, let's unpack this because, what might initially seem like a dry financial topic is actually a deep look into human psychology and trust.
Yeah, and the text makes a very bold statement right out of the gate.
Hmm.
It basically argues that blaming volatility is just taking the easy way out.
The easy explanation, right?
Exactly. I mean, sure, price drops might shake out a few short-term traders. People get panicked.
Of course.
But the reality of why long-term believers quietly leave is it's something much harder to explain. It's a fundamental breakdown of trust.
Trust. Let's clarify what kind of trust we are talking about here,
Yeah, good point.
because it is not about trusting the code to do the math.
No, not at all.
Nobody is arguing that the cryptography is broken or that, like, 2 plus 2 suddenly equals 5 in the code.
Right, the math is solid.
It's about trusting that the rules of the system are actually settled. Source material points out this massive gap between what users expect when they come into the system.
And what they actually encounter.
Yes, exactly.
Because when a new user approaches something like Bitcoin, they are expecting a finished product.
Like buying an app off the store.
Right. They expect a fixed supply, clear parameters, and, a predictable environment.
They want stability.
They want to know that the foundational rules are set in stone so they can confidently store their value there without constantly looking over their shoulder.
But instead, they walk into what feels like a never-ending town hall meeting.
Oh, a loud one.
A very loud one, where everyone is screaming at each other over the microphones. They just encounter constant arguments.
Endless debates.
They see one group of highly technical people saying, "This is Bitcoin," and then another group loudly insisting, "No, this is Bitcoin."
And the friction is constant. The text really emphasizes that this isn't just a minor squabble over a technical detail.
Like optimizing a database or something.
Right, or compressing a file. This is a fundamental disagreement about what the system actually is at its core.
Trying to wrap my head around this, it's like, imagine you sign up to play a simple game of chess with your friends.
Okay, I like this.
You learn the rules, you sit down at the board, you are ready to play.
Mm-hmm.
But every single time it's your turn, your opponent stops the game to fiercely debate how the knight is actually supposed to move.
Oh, that would be incredibly frustrating.
Right, like, actually, I think the knight should move 3 squares instead of 2 today. And someone else says, no, it should only move diagonally.
You wouldn't be able to focus on the strategy of the game at all.
Not at all.
The cognitive load of constantly having to redefine the parameters of play would it would completely overshadow the game itself.
You just walk away.
Absolutely.
You wouldn't leave because the game of chess is fundamentally bad or because you were losing.
Yeah.
You'd quietly leave the table because you just can't play a game where the basic rules are up for negotiation on every single turn.
And this brings us to the core philosophy outlined in our source text today.
Which is?
Well, because the root problem is this constant disagreement over the rules of the game, we really have to pivot and define what this system actually is.
Right.
And to do that, we have to move away from looking at the code itself and start looking at the philosophy of money.
The text drops a line here that honestly stopped me in my tracks.
I think I know the one.
It states, simply, money is not just code. Money is trust in rules.
What's fascinating here is how that single sentence reframes the entire conversation.
It really does.
Because we are so used to thinking about digital currency as a technological marvel, which, it certainly is.
Of course.
But the text argues that the technology isn't the actual money. The money is the trust.
The trust is the money.
Exactly. And right now, there is a massive vacuum at the center of that trust.
Why is there a vacuum?
Because there is no clear user-level definition of Bitcoin that people can just read, understand, and agree to.
And into that vacuum step, all the different factions within the ecosystem.
Oh yeah, the factions.
We really need to break down how this ecosystem operates for you listening. Like, it is not just one big blob of computers.
No, it's very compartmentalized.
The source breaks down the roles clearly. First, you have the developers.
Think of developers as the architects, or like the authors.
Okay.
Their job is to write the code and propose changes to the software. But they don't actually enforce anything on their own.
They just suggest things.
Right. They just offer updates to the community.
Okay, let's pause. Next, you have the node runners. Node runners enforcing software sounds a bit like tech speak.
It does sound a bit matrixy.
Yeah. If I'm a listener, I'm picturing a guy in a dark server room. How exactly do they enforce anything?
Well, think of node runners as the referees on the field.
The referees.
Yeah. They run the software that verifies the transactions. They don't write the rule book.
Because that is the developer's job.
Exactly. But if someone tries to process a transaction that breaks the rules the node is currently running, the node simply rejects it. It bounces.
Oh, wow.
So they hold immense veto power over what gets permanently recorded in the ledger.
Got it. And then the third group are the miners.
The heavy machinery.
Right. They are processing the transactions and securing the network.
Mm-hmm.
They are essentially responding to the financial incentives, doing the heavy mathematical lifting to earn the block rewards.
And finally, you have the users.
Just everyday people.
The everyday people holding the currency. And the text argues that the users are the ones who actually give the system its value.
Right.
The critical gap here is that these users have never explicitly agreed on what the system actually is.
I am struggling with this a bit, so I have to push back.
Okay, lay it on me.
Wait, if developers are the ones building the code and miners are the ones processing the transactions, why does the text argue that the users are the supreme authority?
That is the million-dollar question.
Like, why do they hold the ultimate power if they aren't the ones pulling the levers?
It comes back to the concept of economic energy.
Economic energy.
Yeah. Developers can write the most elegant, perfect code in the world.
Sure.
Miners can process millions of transactions a second. But if no human being actually trusts the system enough to value the token being produced, like
Right.
to use it as a store of wealth or exchange it for real-world goods, then the code is just lines of text on a screen.
The miners would just be spending millions on electricity to mine a digital token that is worth literally $0. Oh, I see. So the users are the ones bringing actual economic gravity to the system.
Without them, the developers are writing fiction, and the miners are just burning electricity for fun.
For fun, yeah. So the users are everything.
The text insists that users breathe life into the system. Therefore, their agreement on what the system is must be the foundational layer.
But right now, they don't have that agreement.
Right, because the developers, the miners, and the nodes are operating without a foundational consensus from the users. The whole ecosystem is structurally unstable.
It goes back to the chess game.
Exactly. They are arguing over the rules of chess, but the people who actually own the chess pieces haven't agreed on what game they are even playing.
So if no one is agreeing on the rules and the users are just sitting there confused, the system doesn't just halt, right?
No, it keeps going.
It keeps producing blocks, it keeps running. But psychologically, what does that do to the person holding the currency?
Well, the consequences are profound. The text explains that every single argument in the community,
And there are a lot of them.
so many, every vicious debate on a forum over a rule change or a technical update, it teaches the market something crucial.
What does it teach them?
It is not teaching the market about the technology. It is teaching the market about its legitimacy.
Legitimacy.
Yeah.
Wow. That is a heavy concept when we are talking about a store of value.
It is. When users see constant debate, it sends a very subtle but very dangerous message. This can change.
This is negotiable.
Yes. The message becomes, this is negotiable.
Like the knight doesn't have to move in an L shape. If we just argue loudly enough, we can make it move straight.
Exactly. And the text makes a vital point here. Once that belief sets in.
The belief that rules are negotiable.
Right. Once that belief sets in, the system fundamentally stops feeling like money.
This is a crucial distinction from the text that I really want to highlight for you listening.
It's so important.
It says that money doesn't fail when rules are violated. It fails when people believe the rules are never settled.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is where the psychological concept of drift comes into play.
Drift. Let's dig into that.
When rules are violently broken, you have an event, a hack, a crash.
Right. It's obvious.
You can point to it and say, there, the system broke. But when people believe the rules are just endlessly fluid, you don't get a sudden collapse.
So it's not a sudden explosion, it's a slow leak. How does a digital system prevent this kind of slow psychological drift?
It's tough.
It reminds me of when your favorite app updates its interface every 3 weeks.
Oh, I hate that.
First, they move the like button, then they change the color scheme, then they completely alter the layout.
And you just get tired of it.
Yeah. Eventually, you don't delete the app in a fit of rage. You just stop opening it because it is exhausting to relearn it every time you pick up your phone.
That's a great analogy.
Is that what drift feels like on a financial level?
That captures the exhaustion perfectly. Drift is so lethal because it is a gradual erosion of trust.
A slow fade.
The text explicitly warns that drift doesn't feel like a failure until it is too late. People don't panic and run for the exits.
They quietly disappear.
Exactly, as the text noted at the very beginning. The psychological weight of the constant negotiation destroys the feeling of permanence that money requires.
It is so insidious because you can't put it on a chart.
No, you can't.
You can track volatility. You can track the price going up and down. You can't chart drift. You can't graph a slow, quiet loss of faith.
And because the problem is a psychological erosion of trust rather than a technical bug in the software.
The solution can't be technical either.
Exactly. You cannot code your way out of a crisis of human confidence.
Which brings us to the author's proposed solution. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, this is my favorite part.
Because the solution to this highly complex, cryptographic, decentralized digital currency problem is incredibly simple.
Almost too simple.
Right. The text states that the solution is not more code and it's not more debate. The solution is just prose.
Human language.
Yes. The text proposes something it calls the Genesis Act.
The Genesis Act.
It is described as a clear, human-readable statement, a document that outlines 3 specific things: what the system is, what it is not, and what is permanently off-limits.
And the beauty of this proposal, according to the text, is in what it is not.
What do you mean?
The Genesis Act is not software. It does not enforce anything directly. It cannot force a computer to run a certain way.
I have to admit, I'm highly skeptical of this.
A lot of people are.
Like, if the Genesis Act is just prose, literally just a Word document or a PDF floating around on the internet, how does that actually stop a rogue developer from writing new code?
Yeah.
Words can't physically block a software update. How does this line in the sand actually function in the real world when dealing with massive financial incentives?
It functions through the sheer force of social consensus creating economic gravity.
Economic gravity again.
Right. Remember how we established earlier that users provide all the value?
Right. Without users valuing the token, the miners are just burning electricity for nothing.
So the mechanics rely entirely on user choice. Users read this human language document and they make a conscious decision.
Very often.
They look at it and say, yes, that's the system I am choosing. I will only buy, hold, and value the digital token that adheres to this specific written description.
Oh, I see. It's like a collective boycott of anything that falls outside the lines.
Precisely. Now, it is immensely difficult to get millions of decentralized users to agree on one prose document.
I can imagine.
The friction there is monumental. We're talking about hurting millions of independent thinkers.
Cats, basically.
Yeah, herding cats. But the text argues that if they do, it acts as an unbreakable container.
An unbreakable container.
Once that boundary is set by the users, the nodes, our referees from earlier, will only run software that matches the act.
Because the nodes want to stay relevant to the users.
Exactly. And the miners, they will absolutely comply.
Because they have to.
Right. Why would a miner spend millions on electricity to process transactions for a version of the software that the users have explicitly stated they will not value?
They would go bankrupt overnight.
Exactly.
So the pros document essentially holds the ecosystem's money hostage.
That's one way to put it.
It forces the developers to build within the boundaries of the Genesis Act, or risk building something the market instantly rejects.
This raises an important question about power dynamics.
How so?
For a long time, the perception has been that the developers or the miners hold the power because they interact directly with the machinery.
They touch the code.
Right. But the text argues that the Genesis Act shifts the power dynamics entirely back to the users. It solidifies them as the supreme authority by giving them a mechanism to explicitly express their consensus.
It's like writing down the official rules of our chess game, putting them in the center of the table, and everyone agreeing to them before the first pawn is moved. If someone tries to argue that the knight should move differently, you don't even engage in the debate, you just point to the paper.
The debate is over before it begins.
The trust is established, and you can finally just play the game.
And that settled foundation prevents drift. It stops the endless arguments about legitimacy because the legitimacy is captured permanently in the prose.
In the plain language.
That is what transforms the system back into money.
Wow. We've gone on quite a journey today.
We really have.
We started by dismantling the idea that people walk away from crypto just because of price volatility.
Right, revealing that the real issue is a creeping breakdown in trust.
And we explored how money isn't just code, it is trust and settled rules.
The rules matter.
We looked at the mechanics of drift, how constant debate teaches the market that the system is negotiable, leading to an exhausting loss of faith.
A slow leak.
And finally, we examined the Genesis Act. The idea that plain human language could establish boundaries, empower users, and stop drift by creating undeniable economic gravity.
It's a powerful idea.
I want to reference a specific line from the text here because I think it speaks directly to anyone trying to navigate this space.
Okay.
The author writes, "If you've ever looked at Bitcoin and thought, I don't know what I'm actually agreeing to, you're not alone."
I love that quote.
I think that is incredibly validating. If you have ever felt overwhelmed or confused by the constant debates in the crypto world, it is not because you lack technical understanding.
Not at all.
You are simply sensing the core problem of the system itself, a lack of settled rules. And as the text concludes, that is a solvable problem.
It absolutely is.
So what does this all mean? We have this fascinating proposal to fix a high-tech problem with plain English. But what does that leave us?
Well, the text argues that we need prose human language to clearly define the rules and stop the endless debates over code. But here is something to mull over on your own. Human language is famously open to interpretation. If the Genesis Act is just prose, what happens when people start debating the definitions of the words within that act? Could plain English ever truly be immune to the exact same drift that currently plagues the code?